Hello, world. Welcome back to the Scaling Ventures podcast. We are building a portfolio of niche vertical SaaS firms that punch like $50 million ARR giants. Back here with Kjael the Wiz, and the topic du jour is the Marketing Accelerator. 3x foundational exercises that deliver immediate impact. So in terms of a table of contents, we'll talk about the marketing momentum problem, and then we'll lean into the 3 foundational exercises. The first being ICP discovery and validation, the second being a 4-stage content mapping exercise, and the third being rapid channel experimentation. And then we'll wrap on why the system works and give you some final thoughts and action steps. That sound good with you, Kev?
That sounds perfect to me, brother.
Beauty. So I think generally speaking, like the hallmarks of, and in context too. So I guess the headline here is that there is no marketing function and you need to start something from scratch and you want to execute some foundational things kind of in parallel. So you can treat this as a sprint and you want them to be, I guess, very virtuous where the progress of one thing serves the other. And the objective here is to get to demonstrable results, ROI from the marketing function as fast as humanly possible, while also kind of working towards longer term, way more very sustainable, very enduring kind of marketing program. So that's the headline here. The hallmarks of when this is probably needed is targeting confusion, where it's like, we don't really understand which customer or accounts or prospects have the highest probability of converting. We're kind of following gut feel. We're purely reactive. We just react to the leads that we get, to the inbound stuff that's coming in. We treat it all the same. We just pray to God something closes. Content gaps, where it's like, we've got some case studies, some other stuff, and it's like, okay, but there's not really a thought process on how those assets map to the buyer journey and how they're supposed to kind of guide and nurture decision-making. And then lastly is kind of channel uncertainty, which is like usually like kind of a spray and pray. It's like, we're going to throw some ads, do some emails, do this thing, do this other thing. And like the old saying, which drives me insane, is 40% of marketing works. You're just never sure which 40% it is. We are what we tolerate. And I would say don't tolerate that.
Definitely not. Don't spend your money at shooting in a dark hole or a dark room.
Yeah. So the whole thing is like, cool, like kind of what are the 3 pillars of a coherent marketing program and how do we get them going quickly and make sure that they're serving each other? And then all the while we're keeping our scientific method hat on to make sure that it's experiment and data driven and you're letting the data kind of determine where you go from there and how to allocate. You can tell when this is buzzing because you've got revenue campaigns that are highly precise. So it's like, we're going after this element of our ICP, this persona group. You'll start to hear language like that, and it's all data driven. Content,
like you understand what qualities they have, you understand what kind of content they read, how to engage with them. Just them like you know your best friend.
100. And then content is like very strategic. So it's like, oh, they're at this point. This will be helpful. This will be helpful.
Yep.
This thing, etc. And then you've got clear ROI on channels. So that's what you're working towards. As it relates to, okay, so foundation 1 is kind of this ICP discovery and validation workshop. So the thing here is that, and it depends on your context. In micro SaaS, we suggest you start with a cross-functional team. The cross-functional team could be like 2 people, but you just want people involved because if there's one thing to drive wild collaboration and insane alignment around, it's ICP. Who is our ideal customer? Because sales is like, it's the ones that spend the most. And products like, it's the ones that use the most. And support's like, it's the ones that we don't hear from. So you got to make sure that everybody's aligned on what that means. And so you want to aim small, miss small here. Like you don't want to kind of get stuck, as we say, so busy building the spider web, you forget to eat the bug. But you want to establish, and I would say start, with 3 vectors, 3 dimensions. So if this was a dating scenario and you have your customers or your historical girlfriends or boyfriends, the first thing you want to do is look at that that group of human beings and try to tease out patterns. So it's like, oh, they're all redheads that live in the Rocky Mountains and like to ski powder. Okay, cool. So then you start to get some dimensions that are working for you. So the first thing is kind of assembling a cross-functional team, analyze your existing customer base. And this is purely data driven. So and you want to enrich the shit out of your customer accounts so that you have more surface area to basically find the patterns. So once you have a general point of view on what this looks like from a pure data perspective, and you want to introduce the spiced components as well, and we'll get into this, and this is where the voice of customer surveys add like a nice anecdotal kind of overlap, and it'll key out ideally like, hey, what are the big 3 features that inform kind of an ML-based ICP score? But the usual suspects are, as I mentioned, or back to the dating analogy, this one kind of sucks, but it's the one I go to a lot. It's like, cool, it doesn't matter if this person is your type. What matters are the conditions in their environment. So if they're married, not a good candidate for a spouse. If they're in a relationship, not a good candidate, period. So it's like they're your type, and those are the firmographics, right? Those are the things that are kind of table stakes. Then you want to start to get into what are the circumstances or the conditions that provoke change and provoke adoption of new tools. So that's where you start to think about SPICE, which is situation, pain, impact, compelling event, and decision. So all to say, there's some stuff that you can scrape that's on data, like, one, like the notorious one is like job postings. Like if you're a recruiter, and you can think of them as triggers too. So it's like, this is our type. A breakup is a trigger that positions them well to make change. So you want to think about it that way. So all to say, some are like publicly listed, and you can scrape that data, and it's super handy. Other stuff you need to tease out, and your best friend, especially when you kind of step into a new leadership position, is voice of customer interviews. It's one of the most high leverage activities you can possibly imagine. And we'll go into more details on that at some other point, but you want to basically use those interviews to extract information around that basically validates your ICP, that's very data driven, or adds some nuance where it's like, oh, actually, this is the thing. This is the thing that really matters. Like, this was the thing that came out of 10 out of 10 people's mouths that provoked change, or that, was kind of an acute pain, something like that. So anyway, I will leave it at that. Kev, what do you have to add, dude? I know this is fresh as it gets in your mind.
I know, and we're like running at 1,000 miles per hour, but I was gonna just summarize it and say the ICP, it's your type. It's who you're interested in, and Spice, just think of that as what is the condition that makes this the perfect opportunity. That's the simplest way to put it. And as you're thinking through this exercise, like you talked about the voice of customer surveys, you're really just looking for a few qualities that identify your best customers, really. It's like, this person, we know they make this much money, they have this many employees, and if they're selling these kind of products, they're perfectly in line for this sale or for our solution. But situationally, it's like, hey, did they just go through an evaluation? Probably not the right time. So now the new situation is, when does that contract eval end, and what's been their experience working with that competitor? So now you can slot right in there when it's coming up to renewal time. So that would be a decent example.
Yeah. And so some other things to mention, that ICP is living and breathing and dynamic as hell. So this is not a figure it out and set it and forget it. Sales process, like you got to think really thoughtfully about, like, what are the closed feedback loops in the business that make us smarter? And probably the most important thing is to refine your ICP over time. So you acquire new customers, you get shut down and lose opportunities. They don't convert after a trial. All of those things, good or bad, feedback into the loop that helps you tune your ICP over time. So it's very much not a static set it and forget it thing.
And use industry trends. That'll tell you their behavior patterns, their buying patterns, technology adoption patterns, all of that stuff. And that's how you'll start to notice your ICP start to change over time.
And as part of those kind of interviews too, so it's basically like, who is our type? And then it's basically, where do they hang out? What do they listen to? What do they like to read? Right. So, and then that starts to play into channels, right? That starts to play into channels. And then what makes them laugh plays into the actual content. So those are the things. It's your type, where they hang out, and the stuff that connects. So simply put, that's ICP. And the other thing is ICP score is relative. So it's usually on a scoring matrix. So 0 meaning a donut shop that is not applicable to your world whatsoever. 100 being a grand slam customer who will never leave and needs all your products, et cetera, et cetera. And there's, again, a million ways to slice and dice this. What you want to do though is just get to a win, which is a general point of view, good, or, t-shirt size it, low, medium, high ICP scores, and then go. And then let activity in the market help you tune and coordinate and calibrate that score over time. Okay, cool. So, and the assumption here too is that all of these foundational exercises are happening in parallel. So that they snap together, and over, call it, you want a 30-day observation period when we get to the channel experiments at minimum. Depending on volume, that might not be enough. So you need to kind of think critically about what a reasonable observation period is for your respective experiments. But hypothetically, if you execute these 3 foundational exercises in parallel, call it 8 weeks, you've got a generally functioning marketing thing, which is generating top of funnel. And top of funnel and then this kind of pulls into your sales cycle. You got to wait. So it's like, if your sales cycle is 5 weeks, you're not going to be able to determine the quality of those leads until 5 weeks at best. If the lead comes in and an opportunity is created. So you just need to be thoughtful that you want to be patient with observation. You don't want to rush stuff and make decisions too quickly, but you also don't want to let stuff run for all kinds of time. You want to read and react. So the other one, and I'll share my screen with this one. There's some stuff worth showing. Okay. So this is Pierre Herubarel is a ninja. He's incredible. And so this is one of his framework. It's kind of, it's old wine, new bottles. So generally kind of fundamental concepts, but I guess the most modern approach to them. So now we're moving towards like a content mapping and quick audit. So it's like, cool, we know what our type is. Now let's figure out what jokes we got if we're going to make them laugh. And you do it on a few dimensions. So the first, and I'll bounce in a little bit, but there's kind of 4 buyer stages. And this used to be any funnel nowadays. We highly recommend the bow tie from Winning by Design. That's one of our most fundamental concepts that we adhere to. But you have 4 general buying stages. Always listening, which is like someone who's not actively searching, but they're open to insights. And that group is growing. Like people are, kind of catching on. They're like, well, I need to kind of stay woke to my category changes, technology breakthroughs, because this stuff is all moving fast and it allows me and my firm to move faster. Stage 2 is like, we have a problem to fix. So there's awareness of an issue. And this is back to like challenger sale and stuff like that, was like, provocative selling. Like the whole challenge was to actually enable prospects, whatever, to actually understand and interpret that they have a problem or see it in a way that's compelling and raises the level of urgency or the priority of that thing such that they buy software to solve it. So step 2 is I got a problem to fix. Step 3 is I'm looking for solutions. Step 4 is I'm comparing vendors. So those all just kind of map neatly to what would conventionally be any kind of marketing funnel. So as it relates to your matrix, then you've got a column for buyer stage, a column for buyer mindset, a column for your goal, a column for content types, and then a column for distribution channels. So I'll just talk through this first stage. So stage 1, always listening. The buyer mindset is not seeking solutions, but open to insight. Your goal is to build brand awareness and position yourself as a thought leader or a trusted resource. And something really cool that I was like, Hormozy has a thing that's like, the sale is the pain. And so if you're going to fixate on something, be the best at describing the pain point and understanding the nuances of the pain point that you're trying to solve. There's a Buddhist saying that a problem well-defined is half solved. So in terms of your goal, I would suggest demonstrating expertise around the problem that you're trying to solve, because it then kind of rationally follows that you're the best to solve it, and to do so with
you're the thought leader in it.
Right. So
and make sure that your content pillars and everything are tied to the problem and how that problem's being addressed.
100. And then you get into content types. So short blogs, industry trends, podcasts, social posts, distribution channels, you guessed it, organic social, newsletters, podcast appearances, etc. So what you're trying to do is basically take stock of what you got. And I would say it's probably very often the case. It's like, we don't have anything. So then you want to just think, and I think like really the outcome that we're here for is not like this really robust audit of your content. It's more so quickly identifying 3 pieces of high impact content that you can produce right away that will assist and kind of nurture folks through whatever stage of the buying cycle is kind of needing the most love at that point. So in this context, it's probably, let's see, like, I think like case in like you, or let's look at so stage 1 is the stuff we just talked on. Let's talk about stage 4 too, because this paints a prettier picture. So comparing vendors. So the buyer mindset is that they've narrowed to a final options. Your goal is to help champion them getting internal buy-in and to help them kind of compare and contrast paths forward. Content types are customer references, security docs, executive briefings, stuff like that. And distribution channels here are one-to-one outreach, proof of concept workshops, buying committee resources, you name it. So generally speaking, the way to go is probably a one asset across all 4 stages that's applicable to your most general ICP definition. So you don't want to go to a specific segment, or you want to be as specific as you can, but you probably want a general asset to work folks through all 4 of those elements. When in doubt, start with a case study and then lean, which is like, a lot of say you're selling the case study ultimately, but you want to bring the impact of your solution to life in a real world manner that groups can relate to. And then you want to fixate on lead magnets. So something very useful that solves a narrow problem that you give away for free, that then kind of is that first step towards building trust, building rapport. So I would say build 2 or 3 lead magnets and get 1 or 2 case studies, and away you go. Anything to add there, Kev?
Nothing to add there.
All right, now it's fun. So in parallel, we've had a data-driven point of view on our voice or on our ICP. We've executed voice of customer interviews to validate that point of view on our ICP and also uncover some elements around what content they consume from different sources, content that was useful when they moved in our direction as a vendor, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and then you're understanding where they kind of hang out. Channels, another way to think of channels is fishing ponds. So you want to figure out where your fish swim, and then you go to the fishing pond. So the first 2 are really in service of this third, which is kind of where things come to a head, which is we've got clear targeting. We've got some content to kind of help nurture and create conversations and lead with value. And now we want to get to a place where we can execute experiments, which is basically like, so it's like, who are we sending this to? What are we sending and where? And where is kind of the thing that snaps it all together. So, but all the while you should be gathering useful information on the channels that have the highest probability. So the very thing to mention is that this is an experiment. So this is not like we're going to do some ads, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. It's like we're going to do this, which we have reason to believe is a good use of our time, and we're going to compare it against this, which is we have equal confidence in, or it's the next up. We're going to run them with equal amount of resources over a defined period of time. And then we're going to analyze the productivity of those two things. And then we're going to double down accordingly. So you want to select your two.
I was going to add one thing. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of other people within your space, likely competitors that are already running somewhat successful campaigns. Look at what's being done in the industry. Obviously, don't copy paste, but get creative after you've seen what others are doing, what's working, what's not working. And then from there, you can establish your foundation, but never reinvent the wheel from scratch.
100. And then these tactics move too. Channels move. There's some cool concepts worth studying. Attention arbitrage is one. So anyway, you want to select 2 or 3 channels, and there needs to be a general kind of loose business case as to why these channels are being selected. Another thing to call out is there's a ton of nuance in what makes or composes a channel. So what, I guess, and some stuff is so embedded that you can't pull it apart. So one example is like, hey, we're going to go hard at organic posts on LinkedIn. And as a function of that, we also need to buy ads on LinkedIn because we're going to use the ads to boost our organic posts. So there's like these dependencies and kind of interweaving of some stuff that you can't pull it apart. So in that context, it's like we're testing LinkedIn. And then the actual tactical execution is organic content and paid ads. So the other thing too is like testing paid ads doesn't mean you're going to run paid ads across Facebook, display ads, LinkedIn, whatever. You just need to be thoughtful on and reach mutual agreement with your camp on what actually is the definition of a channel, and then establish, basically what is a channel in that context. So anyway, and then you let her rip and you sit there and you don't stare at it. You probably come and look at it, and you need, there's all these kind of dependencies around volumes where you can actually get something that's statistically significant or get something that's compelling. But after 30 days, you should usually be able to do it or to make some general judgment calls. And it might be too tough to tell. We're going to run it for another 45 days. And that's okay. And then the other thing to call out here too is we are all, as operators, as leaders, I am happy spending money to learn. So when you get to this, that learning is critical. And a lot of times it costs money. So when you get to the end of this, it's not like, oh man, we wasted all that money on paid ads. It's like, no. We paid this money to figure out paid ads don't work for us. So,
exactly, yeah.
Or at this point in time where the world is, et cetera. And then that's the thing too, like, don't be scared to revisit tactics as the world moves. So that's that. Lastly, okay, why the hell does this system work? Clear ICP targeting, stage-based, so I'll just read this. Clear ICP targeting ensures you're pursuing the right accounts being highest probability of converting to customers. Stage-based content moves those accounts smoothly through the funnel. So you're basically creating nudges that occur at the time when folks need to be nudged the most. Channel experiments deliver that content to prospects efficiently. And then the data from your results refines your ICP even further. And so there's even an ICP, or there's a feedback loop in this experiment. And that's how you can tell you're on the right track. It's like, cool, we'll do this and we'll spend this money, but how does it make the business smarter on the defined time period that we've executed it on? Some final thoughts for y'all. Start small, move fast. Back to the thing is like, you don't need this like 30 dimension ICP score. It's like, I know these three factors are huge. Move. Cool. We looked at our thing. We mapped some content. We have no case studies. Move. Start making a case study. Or what would be, those are some examples. And then I guess with the actual experiments, you want to be patient. You want to be patient. You want to be thoughtful about the observation period and let these things really run and give them kind of the space to breathe that they need for you to draw some actual conclusions.
Yeah. Or it's like, we haven't written any content before. Okay. Look at what your competitors are writing and where they're doing most of that writing. And if people are actually engaging with it the way that you would want your potential customers to engage with your content. Cool, move.
Totally. And when it comes to the success criteria for the respective experiments, research and get some benchmarks from your peer group, from your industry, whatever. Like the age-old one is SEO is like no results. Oh my dear God, it's ripping. So
literally,
like there's stuff that like it has to achieve a critical mass before it like punches through. So if you're like, all right, we're going to, SEO is going to be a thing that we focus on and we're going to give it 30 days. By the end of 30 days, you're going to be like, this was a huge waste of time. And it's like, no. Like keep digging. Like the gold is another third and then it's going to be a huge gold vein. So keep plugging away.
Yeah, especially with long tail keywords in SEO. Remember, you got to put the content out there. The content's got to live in the wild, get crawled by the bots, get ranked, and then people start clicking on that bad boy. So you got at least 3 to 6 months before you really see anything turn around from SEO.
So pick your LLM as your best friend. Hello, we are planning to run these experiments. We've decided that these channels are optimal. Please suggest an optimal observation period. Here. Okay, got it. Cool. So again, you've got an expert robot in any walk of life that is a prompt away. So
What a time to be alive.
Use that tooling accordingly. Hey Lou, pleasure to share the field of battle with you as always, my friend. For the love of the game, dual lasers. Oh, you better scoot back. There you go. Come on. Yes, dual lasers. Wow, we've been waiting a long time for that.
Spot on.
Dual laser beams. All right, much love, world. If this is useful, share it. Like it, so do something that I can see that shows that it's working. And we're here to, it's a conversation. So we're here as peers. Let's talk through how to do this stuff better and, keep better every day until we're, achieve full potential or some version of that.
1,000%.
All right, buddy.
Love of the game.
Catch you next time. Peace.